Hello everyone, and welcome to the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture. I'm of course your host TJ. Today we're talking about Wednesday, the second season, I should say, of Wednesday, the hit Netflix series starring Jenna Ortega as Wednesday Addams. Now I have to say I was a huge fan of the first season. I thought it was a brilliant reimagining of this, iconic sitcom family. I grew up in the 90s, so I was familiar with the Raul Julia, Angelica Houston, Christopher Lloyd of it all, but I felt that they did some really spot-on casting in this season, in the first season, and now we get it even better in the second. I think that the second season is a much more mature series than the first one. Obviously, it's always a joy to see Jenna Ortega. I think she so brilliantly and perfectly inhabits the character of Wednesday, but I also enjoyed seeing some of the other characters get their time in the sun. Like, I'm really glad that they've cast Catherine Zeta-Jones and brought her back as a full-time cast member as Morticia. And I also find that Luis Guzman is perfectly cast as Gomez. Like, I cannot imagine anyone else now except for him. I mean, obviously we have John Astin, and we also have Raul Julia. But, I think that Guzman is going to take his place as arguably the definitive interpretation of this character. Now, in the second season, obviously, Wednesday is kind of a celebrity. She comes back to Nevermore, but only to find, of course, that not only is she being kind of mobbed by people who celebrate her for her actions in the first season, but also the sinister new figure who can control crows, and so there's that whole mystery that sort of motivates the first half of the season that we've been watching. Now, like I said, clearly for me at least, a big part of the draw of this second season is just seeing these characters and this sort of macabre sense of humor. It certainly helps that Tim Burton directs a couple of the episodes, that it manages to capture so much of what's delightfully quirky and kooky, from the original show about the Addams family. And, I think that it's light on its feet. It doesn't beat you over the head with its oddness, but at the same time, the oddness is kind of baked into the ethos and the aesthetic of the show, and that's really why I enjoy it so much. Now, we have a couple of new cast members that I think are worth mentioning, foremost of which is Isaac Ordonez, who plays Pugsley. Now, we saw him in the first season, but now he's also his own story arc, and he finds this student that seems to have had a clockwork heart and resurrects this zombie who, of course, starts devouring people. We also have Steve Buscemi, who plays the new principal of Nevermore, who is, of course, deliciously odd and strange because it's Steve Buscemi and he's always deliciously strange and odd. There's all sorts of goings on. I mean, there's a lot of plot packed into these 4-hour-long episodes, and I'm really kind of surprised that it doesn't get overwhelmed. But that's the brilliance, I think, of the Netflix model at its best, and we see it in things like Stranger Things. We see it in Wednesday. I think these are the kinds of shows that really make the most use out of an expanded story time. So we have hour-long episodes that give us a lot of time to once again inhabit this world, to see Wednesday, to get to know her. And one of the sort of driving engines of the plot this season is her conflict with her mother, who is trying to look out for her, but is kind of overprotective and not really but Wednesday, for her part, is not acknowledging the potential perils of her psychic gift, which, there's all sorts of things that go into that. And so, it's fun to watch. I think the show has a good balance between the sort of innate oddness of the Addams family as a sort of institution, but also, giving us that sort of central mystery that motivates the plot and motivates Wednesday's actions as she tries to figure out who this person is that is, committing these crimes, but also, dealing with maternal drama as one does. Anyone who's had conflicts with their mother will recognize the difficulties therein. And, so I think that that's always a real enjoyable part of the whole thing. Now, also, I will also mention, let's see, I also enjoy Emma Myers as Enid. Like, I think that she's really bubbly and enjoyable, and there's a very much an Elphaba Glinda dynamic there that I think is worth enjoying. And then, of course, there's Hunter Dewey, who plays Tyler, who is now imprisoned in a mental institution. And, there's all sorts of stuff going on there. Christina Ricci makes a memorable appearance. So like I said, there's a lot going on in these 4 episodes. But I really enjoyed it. I'm glad so much that we have these kinds of strange, offbeat, but also genuinely good and heartwarming shows. Because, I mean, although the Addams family is very macabre, it's not, cynical. I mean, Wednesday is herself very cynical, but I think that she's not that doesn't define her completely. So anyway, all of which is to say, I really enjoyed Wednesday. I'm waiting very impatiently for the next several episodes to drop. I'm also very glad that Netflix has seen the wisdom of renewing it for a third season. I think that, this is going to be seen as the interpretation of the Addams Family for the current age, and I just love it. And I love the way that sort of it has a kind of queer aesthetic. There's we celebrate outcasts and oddballs in all of their iterations. Although there's not a lot of queer storylines per se, I do think that there's something very queer about the whole approach, and there's something queer about the Addams Family themselves. And I just enjoy that we are getting to celebrate that oddness, especially in this new, very bleak age of conformity where everyone is sort of just, not sure what to do. So we all need some escapism into a weird, quirky, macabre world, and I think Wednesday provides that perfectly. So, of course, I'll be back again when the second part of the season drops in September, but in the meantime, I do want to give it my full-throated support. It is, of course, I'm giving it the much-coveted Pisces Guide to Pop Culture seal of approval, because we know that's what that's what Hollywood's really looking for, so you heard it here. That's anyway, all of that's just to say I really enjoyed this show, and I hope you do too. Go watch it if you can. I think these kinds of shows deserve love, support, and eyeballs. Anyway, that's all I have for today for the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture. So of course, I'm your host TJ. Hope you all have a great afternoon. Take care, y'all.